Millionaire's daughter, 6, calms when shy librarian reveals incredible secret. Emma's heart raced as she clutched her favorite book tightly in her small hands. The library's quiet embrace both a refuge and a reminder of her burdens. Here, surrounded by rows of enticing tales, she felt weightless for just a fleeting moment. Yet, with every flutter of pages, a gnawing anxiety bloomed within her. Her father's expectations loomed over her like a relentless storm cloud. The millionaire mogul with his unyielding dreams for his daughter straining against her fragile heart. At school, the chatter of wealth and status echoed in the hallways. Each polished shoe tapping the floor a reminder of a world that valued appearances over authenticity. Unlike her classmates whose laughter rang like golden chimes, Emma felt small and invisible. She was the millionaire's daughter, a title that came not only with prestige but with crushing weight. Proving herself, meeting standards, and navigating the treacherous waters of popularity felt like an uphill battle she was destined to lose. She blinked back tears, the swelling despair tugging at her chest. A constant battle between seeking her own voice and adhering to the world's relentless expectations. Was it wrong to want to escape, to be just Emma instead of the girl molded by her father's ambition? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma could almost hear the librarian's soft voice calling to her, beckoning from the depths of her imagination. Mr. Thompson was different from others. The way his eyes held a quiet understanding felt like a tether to a world beyond her father's glimmering finances. When he noticed the tears that brimmed in her doe-like eyes, Emma sensed a flicker of recognition in his sadness, as if he understood the weight upon her heart. Hope grew within their secret minutes spent together, where Mr. Thompson spun stories that bristled with life, echoing with adventure, courage, and the unashamed beauty of being true to oneself. But every time their friendship blossomed, Emma's heart hesitated. The fear of her father's disapproval surged like a tidal wave, crashing against the shores of her newfound courage. Would he understand that her dreams had shifted like the tides? Or would he crush them as he demanded perfection molded to his expectation? And then Mr. Thompson revealed a secret, one that felt like the opening of a door to an untold world. He had once clutched the dream of writing, a treasure hidden beneath layers of doubt and fear. Could Emma follow a similar path, or was she doomed to follow her father's blueprint? Emma grappled with her emotions, caught between the warmth of storytelling and the cold grip of her father's ambitions. The tension tightened around her, unbearable and yet electrifying, as she faced the bitter truth that the fate of her heart depended on her choice. Here, under the flickering lights of the library, an unseen battle raged within her, demanding to be resolved. Would she find the strength to embrace the story of her own making? Or would her father's shadow extinguish her light before it could fully bloom? The library felt different now, each corner exuding the new weight of possibility. Emma lingered longer than usual after their conversations, pondering the path Mr. Thompson had unwittingly illuminated. The world of writing, one filled with layered realities and vibrant characters, tantalized her imagination. With every story he shared, a ripple of a different future cascaded through her thoughts, one where she might break free from the carefully manicured expectations pressed upon her. As she returned home, the once familiar grand estate loomed over her like a fortress, its polished marble and glittering chandeliers serving as constant reminders of her father's ambitions. The echo of laughter from her classmates filled her ears, a mocking lilt against her longing. They enjoyed lives more free, lives without burdens of legacy weighing on their shoulders. Emma felt an unsettling ache in her chest, a chasm separating her from them, a chasm she yearned to cross. Her father's voice boomed through the mansion upon her arrival, cascading down the staircase with the weight of authority. "Emma, come here." His tone was commanding, already beginning to drape a cloak of apprehension over her. She approached hesitantly, well aware of the expectations that awaited her. "We need to discuss your upcoming evaluations," he declared, his gaze scanning her critically. Emma squirmed. Evaluations felt less like merit assessments and more like traps set to ensnare her burgeoning sense of self. "You must excel, darling. People expect it from you." What exactly did they expect? Emma mused, wrangling with the resentful truth that no one seemed to expect her to exist outside her father's dreams. Could she share with him the whispers of her own desires echoing in her mind? Her father's ardor for success left no room for her dreams. They were subservient to an overarching vision. As the weight of his words settled upon her shoulders, a ghost of Mr. Thompson's encouragement flickered in the back of her mind. "You're allowed to chase your own story," he had said, a quiet mantra still vibrating in her heart. Emma decided it was time to contemplate that very idea further. In the cool solitude of her room that night, she unfolded a blank page, contemplating the stream of thoughts swirling like an unsteady tide. What if she began to write down her fears and hopes? Perhaps through words she could map an escape plan, experimentally weaving pieces of herself that had yet to see the light of day. With the pen gliding across the page, Emma felt empowerment surge through her, urging her fingers on. She wrote of a princess trapped not by a tower, but by her own castle built from expectations. She penned a story about a girl who unclipped her wings, whispering to the wind that she yearned to fly free. But as ink dried on the paper, a cruel doubt crawled in. What if she had no talent? What if her father discovered her secret ambitions? The impending confrontation brewed like storm clouds on a distant horizon, threatening to drown her nascent dreams before they could cultivate roots. That uncertainty gnawed at her, intertwining with the flickering hope ignited by the librarian's confidence in her potential. It felt as if freedom and fear collided, each vying for dominance. Was she truly brave enough to take the first steps towards a dream, despite knowing she would face opposition? Emma's hand hesitated over the page, pressing against the freedom she had begun to script. The silence was deafening, a prelude to the chaos that awaited on the other side of her decision. A new determination surged within. The time had come to face the truth she had long avoided, her father's shadow or her own light. What was she willing to brave to awaken her voice and shatter the expectations confining her? The moment of choice lingered with a newfound urgency, setting the stage for her next confrontation. Emma steeled herself as her thoughts coalesced around her next action, a powerful declaration of her journey. The morning sun filtered through her window, illuminating the scattered pages that had become Emma's sanctuary. She had written through the night, each stroke of the pen a pulse of defiance against the tightrope of her life. In those delicate hours, the words had poured forth like a stream unearthing hidden treasures. Characters sprang to life, battles of will played out on paper, and for the first time, she felt like an architect of her future. Yet, as the sun's warmth enveloped her, anxiety crept back in. Each golden ray a reminder of the looming evaluations and her father's ever-watchful gaze. The construct of her father's world bore down like a weight on her chest, the expectation suffocating. At that moment, she knew she would have to find the courage to confront that weight, to uproot her fears like weeds from a garden she yearned to cultivate. The idea sparked. What if she shared her story with Mr. Thompson? The thought sent a thrill of anticipation through her veins. Would he believe in her words as fiercely as she had begun to? It was a risk, but that realization brought clarity. Would it not be more courageous to expose her vulnerability than to hide behind the facade of perfection? Emma took a deep breath, the kind that fishtailed through her mind, leading her to confront the core of her conflict. She resolved to visit the library that afternoon, a battle plan forming, yet she wrestled with a gnawing doubt. Was she truly ready to expose herself? In school, her mind drifted during lectures. She grappled with the fervor of her thoughts, heart racing as she imagined the conversation ahead. Those moments, however, became a juxtaposition of excitements overshadowed by trepidation. Her classmates, wholly immersed in their own distractions, remained unaware of her internal struggle. Their laughter ricocheted off her walls like taunts. After class, she made her way to the library, her stomach fluttering. Each step felt laden with the dichotomy of hope and fear. As she entered, the scent of aged paper and polished wood enveloped her, soothing her nerves momentarily. Mr. Thompson was organizing a collection of novels, his usual intensity palpable in the air. "Emma, you're back," he said, that familiar smile brightening the corners of his eyes. There was warmth in his enthusiasm, grounding her resolve. "Mr. Thompson, may I ask you something?" she started, the words tumbling out before she could retreat back into silence. "Of course, anything," he encouraged, his eyes locking onto hers with an eagerness that ignited her spark. "I've started writing, and I was wondering if you would read some of it?" A pause lingered, the weight of her request hanging in the air. She constricted internally, simultaneously desperate for his validation and terrified of his rejection. "Absolutely, I'd be honored to read it," he replied, a genuine sincerity threading through his voice. That bold acceptance cascaded through her, dispelling clouds of doubt lingering in her mind. However, a lurking anxiety remained, a nagging voice reminding her of her father's impending ire at any hint of disobedience. Would he accept her creative pursuits, or would it only deepen the rift between her authentic self and the person he wanted her to be? Her determination surged as she contemplated the risk. "I'll share it with you soon," she asserted, a newfound conviction lacing her words. As Emma turned to leave, the reality of what she was undertaking crashed upon her, vibrating her heart like the pages of an unsettled book. This wasn't just about writing now. It was about claiming her voice, tethering her identity to her desires instead of her father's expectations. Her determination surged as she contemplated the risk. "I'll share it with you soon," she asserted, a newfound conviction lacing her words. As Emma turned to leave, the reality of what she was undertaking crashed upon her, vibrating her heart like the pages of an unsettled book. This wasn't just about writing now. It was about claiming her voice, tethering her identity to her desires instead of her father's expectations. Her determination surged as she contemplated the risk. "I'll share it with you soon," she asserted, a newfound conviction lacing her words. As Emma turned to leave, the reality of what she was undertaking crashed upon her, vibrating her heart like the pages of an unsettled book. This wasn't just about writing now. It was about claiming her voice, tethering her identity to her desires instead of her father's expectations. Her determination surged as she contemplated the risk. "I'll share it with you soon," she asserted, a newfound conviction lacing her words. As Emma turned to leave, the reality of what she was undertaking crashed upon her, vibrating her heart like the pages of an unsettled book. This wasn't just about writing now. It was about claiming her voice, tethering her identity to her desires instead of her father's expectations. But as she stepped outside into the warm afternoon light, a chilling thought gripped her. What if this path led to confrontation that she feared most? Every choice demanded a sacrifice, and the reckoning with her father was now looming closer. Would she risk everything to embrace this burgeoning identity, or would she retreat to the sanctuary of his dreams? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her, casting a shadow over her anticipated freedom. Emma hesitated, caught in the web of her decision. The moment was pregnant with possibilities, the future hanging in a precarious balance, waiting for her next move. The next morning dawned with a muted light, a hesitant herald of the day that lay before her. Emma sat at her desk, the remnants of last night's revelations lingering like an unwelcome cloud above her. Today would not be another ordinary day. It would be the first step into a new chapter of her life, albeit one riddled with apprehension. As she prepared for school, the notebook lay open beside her, pages filled with her raw thoughts and beginnings of stories. Each word echoed her desire for freedom, yet the frustration of unfulfilled expectations pulsed through her like a wounded bird desperately seeking escape. She resolved to share her words with Mr. Thompson by the end of the day. It was now or never. School felt different, the hallways conducting a dull symphony of laughter and chatter that felt detached from her own turmoil. In classrooms, the lessons blurred, not because they lacked value, but because her thoughts thrummed with the impending exposure of so much of herself. Every time she caught her father's eye, a chill prickled at her skin. He sat in his chair, stoic and vigilant, the embodiment of her greatest fear, a silent judge looming over her nascent aspirations. During lunch, while her classmates exchanged stories of weekend escapades, Emma sat apart, heart pounding as she rehearsed her lines in her mind. Would Mr. Thompson think her writing was worthwhile? Would he see the essence of her emerging self reflected in those pages, or merely judge her imitative expressions? She kicked her thoughts into a quiet corner, desperate to focus, but the dread mounted. After school, Emma stood before the library's entrance, breath catching in her throat. The familiar scent of books wafted through the doors, inviting yet intimidating. Each step felt heavier than the last, her heart drumming in anxious rhythm as she recalled her father's implications regarding her pursuits. "Emma, you made it!" Mr. Thompson's voice pulled her from the spiraling depths of her anxiety. He perched behind the desk, glasses balanced low on his nose, looking every bit like the arbiter of dreams he had been to her. His enthusiasm struck a chord inside her, urging her to shed the inhibitions that trapped her voice. "Hi, Mr. Thompson," she managed, the tremor in her voice belying the storm within her. "I've been looking forward to your writing," he declared, the fire in his expression igniting her resolve. In that moment, she pulled out the notebook, the pages alive with her scribbles, as if they could leap off and fly into his understanding. "Here," she said, breathless and eager, "this is what I've been working on." He took the notebook, his fingers brushing lightly against her hand, an unspoken promise of possibility. As he flipped the pages, she felt exposed, each word representing a facet of her growing identity. She held her breath, anxiety swirling like smoke through her veins. As he read, a few moments ticked by, thick with tension, until he finally looked up. There was a gleam in his eyes, a mixture of surprise and admiration that left her momentarily.
"Emma, this is remarkable. You have a unique voice. Remember, every writer has to develop their craft. Your journey is just beginning." Those words cascaded over her like a soothing balm, yet beneath that warmth, an undercurrent of fear bubbled up. The validation felt good, but what effects would this feedback have on her father's expectations? A persistent ache in her chest grew as she navigated the new terrain of her identity and its potential repercussions. "I'm glad you think so," she murmured, battling the shadows of conflicting emotions. She wanted to ask more, to delve deeper into his views and immerse herself entirely in writing, but the stark reality of her father's control intruded again, threatening to extinguish her newfound fire. "Are you going to share this with your father?" Mr. Thompson asked, his voice turning gentler, almost probing. She hesitated. Would she be ready to challenge the chains that held her? Would revealing this part of herself push her father to see her, or further shatter their relationship? The battle within her raged fiercely, and with it came a realization. The more she embraced her truth, the deeper the conflict with her father would likely grow. But as doubt sank its roots, a fierce flicker of determination sparked within her. "Yes, I will," she whispered, feeling the weight of her choice crystallize into resolve. What came next loomed in her consciousness, an inevitable confrontation unearthing a new realm of conflict. As she left the library, notebook tucked under her arm, Emma steeled herself for the inevitable clash of worlds. Would her father accept the echo of her evolving self, or would his disappointment drown her aspirations in silence? The path ahead was uncertain, but now illuminated by a burgeoning sense of agency. Emma took a step forward, ready to face the nameless fears that awaited her at home. The time had come to confront not only her father, but the parts of herself that hungered to be seen and heard. The afternoon drew heavy as Emma returned home. Every step weighted with anticipation. She could almost hear the whisper of her notebook, urging her to embrace the courage she had unearthed in Mr. Thompson's office. But with each passing moment, doubt burgeoned, twisting in her gut like a coiled snake. Inside, the familiarity of her home felt suffocating. The walls, painted a muted gray, seemed to close in as her father's voice echoed in her mind. His dismissive tones, a storm cloud threatening to obscure her newfound light. Emma found him in the living room, a newspaper in his hands, his brow furrowed in concentration. For a moment, she paused at the threshold, feeling the warmth from the sun outside contrast sharply with the chilling atmosphere of the house. "Emma?" His voice cut through her hesitation, firm and commanding. "Is that you?" The single sentence stripped away her resolve, the earlier enthusiasm ebbing as her father's gaze pinned her in place, sharp and scrutinizing. She swallowed hard, clenching the notebook.
How would she ever find the words to explain? I have something to show you," she finally stammered, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. He lowered the newspaper, the crinkles of his brow deepening in curiosity, yet again masked by the authority that seemed to fill the room. "What is it?" Emma crossed the distance to the coffee table, placing her notebook down as though it were both a shield and a bridge. With trembling fingers, she opened it, revealing the pages filled with her most vulnerable thoughts and dreams. The bright ink seemed alien against the drab world around her. As she read aloud, her voice trembled, breaking the silence that hung like a thick fog. Each word pulled her deeper into her memories, the flickering fire of her identity glowing brighter. For a few moments, it felt as if she were no longer a daughter under his shadow, but a creator unveiling her truth. "This is my writing," she stated, the conviction surprising even herself. But as she glanced up, his expression was cold, eyes narrowed, a far cry from the warmth Mr. Thompson had exuded. "Is this what you've been doing instead of studying?" he demanded, his voice low and steady, like a noose tightening around her neck. In that moment, the weight of her choices crashed down. Her dreams were a direct challenge to his authority, and for the first time, she felt every beat of her heart echoing the perilous decision she had made. "No, Dad, it's not like that. I'm trying to express myself," she implored, her voice quivering under the pressure of disappointment and anger radiating from him. "Express yourself?" he scoffed, standing up and folding his arms, the notebook now a symbol of conflict rather than creativity. "You think this is going to help you in life? You need to focus on what matters. You'll never make a living from this." The force of his words rushed over her like a cold wave, the fear she had been battling resurfacing with a vengeance. She felt the urge to retreat, to apologize, to make it right with him, but a stubborn spark ignited within her. "But I found something I'm passionate about. I can't just stop because you think it's not worthwhile." The silence that followed was thunderous, every breath in the room palpable. She had crossed an unseen threshold, the battle lines drawn with a clarity she had never anticipated. But a flicker of resolve held her ground. He blinked, surprise flickering in his eyes for the briefest moment before they hardened again. "Passion doesn't pay the bills, Emma. You need to understand that," he intoned, a chilling finality to his voice. With her heart racing, Emma realized this rift was far deeper than mere disagreements over her hobbies. It was about her self-definition, a violent clash between who she was becoming and who he expected her to be. The stakes had never felt higher. "I won't stop," she asserted, surprise washing over her as she recognized the power of her words. "I don't want to disappoint you, but I can't pretend to be someone I'm not." As she braced for his reaction, she realized they stood on the precipice of something life-altering. Would he storm away in anger, or would her proclamations ignite a conversation neither of them knew they needed? The answer loomed, and with it, the uncertainty of what the next beat would bring. One thing was clear, the battle for her authenticity had just begun, reshaping both their futures in ways they could not yet fathom. Would they find common ground, or would this moment mark the beginning of a deeper division? Emma felt a tension in her bones, anticipation coiling with each heartbeat. Emma's declaration hung in the air, a tangible thing filled with the weight of defiance and vulnerability. Her father's silence was a storm brewing, and she felt the voltage crackle in the space between them. The flickering lights overhead seemed to mirror her uncertainty. Had she truly found her voice, or had she simply opened the door to a greater conflict? His gaze shifted, and for a moment, Emma thought she glimpsed something softer, a flicker of concern or perhaps even confusion. But it vanished quickly, replaced by a resoluteness that made her heart race in protest. "You're young. You don't know what you're saying," he said, his tone heavy with a blend of disappointment and authority, like a judge passing down a sentence. Emma struggled against the surge of anger that threatened to consume her, anchoring her thoughts as she explored the depths of the moments that had led her to this confrontation. "I may be young, but I know what I want," she replied, her voice steadying, surprised by her own strength. "Wanting is one thing, Emma. Knowing what you need to do to survive is another," he shot back, dismissing her like a fleeting notion. The sharpness of his words felt like thrusts to her gut, each composing a different narrative of what could have been. It was infuriating that he seemed to reduce her passion to mere whims. Emma took a breath, fighting back the tears that threatened to blur her vision. This wasn't merely about writing anymore. It was about respect. "If you can't support me now, then what was all the sacrifice for? Didn't you want me to thrive?" With each word, she felt herself gaining ground, not just in confrontation, but in self-realization. His face hardened, and the air grew denser with unspoken words. "I wanted you to have security, to have a stable life." The vulnerability in his voice shocked her. It intermingled with the tension, evoking a sense of disbelief. Was the heart of his resistance merely fear? He had always equated success with financial stability, but did he not see that passion could lead her somewhere meaningful too? As the whirlpool of emotions swirled, Emma remembered Mr. Thompson's encouragement. This was a moment crafted for growth, for both of them. "Do you think I want to fail?" she asked, searching his face for a response. "What I want is to carve out my own path, even if it's different from what you envisioned." There was something liberating in claiming her intentions. No longer was she merely reacting to his doubts. She was challenging him to look beyond his rigid expectations. "I'm scared, Emma," he finally admitted, his voice softer now, the barriers between them beginning to crack. "Scared that you won't find your way, scared of seeing you struggle." This revelation was a chink in his armor, a glimpse of the man behind the father, someone flawed and filled with his own doubts. At that moment, all the conflicts seemed to shift in Emma's favor. She felt the urgency of their conversation shift from chaos to a potential resolution. "Then let me learn, let me find my way, and if I stumble, I promise to come to you for help." The release of this ultimatum felt monumental, not just for her, but for their fractured relationship. The air thickened as he considered her words, and in the pauses between them, Emma felt the tide of vulnerability wash over her again. They both needed to face their fears, but she wouldn't back down. "What if," he began, his voice filled with tentative hope, "you show me what you enjoy? Perhaps there's something we can work out." Emma's heart pumped excitement through her veins. This wasn't the agreement she envisioned, but it was a starting point, a bridge she could build upon. But as she opened her mouth to respond, the doorbell rang, slicing through their moment of clarity. "What now?" she muttered, a hint of irritation surfacing as they both exchanged glances filled with lingering anticipation. "I'll get it," he said finally, moving toward the sound, leaving Emma momentarily suspended in the balance of hope and uncertainty. What awaited on the other side of the door could either bolster her fledgling resolve or send her spiraling back into doubt. With each tick of the clock, she felt the weight of the possibilities ahead. Would this be the encouragement she needed, or a new challenge waiting to dismantle the fragile ground they had just begun to forge? As her father's footsteps approached, the sound of the door opening felt monumental. A turning point arrived, but to whose advantage? Emma's pulse quickened in the mere anticipation of unknown possibilities. The door creaked open, and the sunlight cut across the room, illuminating her father's silhouette against the hallway. Emma held her breath, anticipation tightening her chest. Who could be at the door? The possibilities swirled in her mind. A delivery, a neighbor, or maybe even someone unexpected who could change everything. She caught a glimpse of her father's face shift from apprehensive to surprised. "Oh, it's you," he exclaimed, his tone registering a mix of curiosity and relief. Stepping into the living room was Miss Harper, the town librarian. Emma felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. What was she doing here? The librarian had always seemed a fixture of the background, an observer of life rather than a participant. But today, her expression was charged with purpose, and Emma could sense the tension radiating from her father's body even amidst his warmth of greeting. "Is now a bad time?" Miss Harper asked, her voice a gentle whisper that exuded both confidence and uncertainty. Emma's father shifted slightly, glancing back at Emma for a signal. She couldn't gauge his reaction. Was he annoyed, or was this a distraction he desperately needed? Suddenly, the moment felt like an opportunity, not a distraction. "No," Emma replied, catching her father's eye. "Please, come in." As Miss Harper stepped further into the room, Emma's mind raced. What could this mean? The librarian had always been supportive of her writing, often complimenting the poetry she crafted during the monthly book club meetings. Perhaps she was here to share something significant about a writing opportunity, or maybe even to offer her guidance in ways Emma had never anticipated. Miss Harper settled into a chair, leaning forward as she seemed to weigh her words carefully. "I know this isn't the usual visit, but I couldn't leave without speaking to you both." Her gaze moved from father to daughter. "Emma, I've been following your passion closely, and I believe there's more to explore than you realize." Emma felt a rush of validation at the librarian's acknowledgement, her previous feelings of doubt and confusion suddenly shifting to determination. The contrast between her father's rigid expectations and Miss Harper's nurturing validation ignited something within her. "I wanted to let you know about an opportunity," Miss Harper continued, excitement sparkling in her eyes. "A local short story competition aimed at young writers. The winner gets a feature in the town magazine and a small scholarship. I thought of you immediately." Emma's pulse quickened. "Really?" she managed, her voice infused with the thrill of discovery. This was exactly the kind of acknowledgement she craved, something tangible to prove her worth, not just to her father but to herself. Her father remained silent, his expression unreadable. He seemed to sense the significance of Emma's reaction, but held on to his reservations. "Yes," Miss Harper nodded, noticing Emma's excitement. "You should give it a shot. I think it would be an incredible benefit to you, and it might even help both of you see your dreams from different angles." A silence stretched, heavy with unsaid words, as Emma processed the weight of this opportunity. She could feel the potential for resolution shift in the atmosphere. Here was a practical step toward proving herself, not just as a writer, but as someone capable of chasing after what she valued. "I want to do it," Emma declared, her voice ringing with conviction, a stark contrast to the hours spent in doubt. "This would be my chance to show you both what I can achieve." Miss Harper beamed, while her father's brows knit together, a vague unease shadowing his features. Was he hesitating because he feared the competition, or because he still clung to his visions of security for her? "Should we discuss this?" Miss Harper suggested, turning her attention to Emma's father. Emma felt a flicker of dread. The librarian's encouraging demeanor contrasted sharply with her father's heavy silence. A new kinship was budding, and she wanted to let it flourish without interference. He took a breath, his features softening slightly. "Perhaps, let's talk about it, but I still worry about your future." Determination bubbled within Emma. "If I'm to prove myself, I'll need your support." As father and daughter squared off in another moment of negotiation, the librarian's presence became a catalyst for change. The energy in the room shifted, and Emma sensed that everyone was standing at the edge of something significant. But what lurked beneath this sudden wave of possibility? Could she bring her father to a point of acceptance? More importantly, could Emma muster the courage to delve not only into writing, but into the depths of her fears as she embarked on this competition? The horizon of her journey shimmered with uncertainty, the way forward both exhilarating and terrifying. Just as she readied herself to speak, a pang of trepidation seized her. What if the upcoming challenge led to confrontation rather than cohesion? In that moment, she understood the true test lay ahead, and the competition was only a part of a much larger battle brewing within her. Would she emerge fortified, or would her resolve be shattered by the impending struggles? As they began to discuss their path forward, Emma felt the weight of her dreams intertwining with newfound hope. But lurking beneath was the gnawing fear that time would reveal whether this was the beginning of her vocal ascent or just a calm before the storm. Emma could feel the momentum building around her as her father finally agreed to discuss the competition. The air around them thrummed with uncertainty. Each word exchanged a potential opening or a point of contention. She took a deep breath, determined to seize this moment, not just for her writing aspirations, but for her relationship with her father. "Dad," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "this competition could be my chance to show I can pursue something meaningful, something I love." Her father's gaze traveled to Miss Harper, who remained significantly quieter now, a mediator in this delicate exchange. Emma wondered if her father viewed their dialogue as steadfast support or an unwelcome intrusion. The tension in his brow tightened again, and she could see him mentally rehearsing his arguments. "Emma, passion is great, but this isn't just about winning a contest," he finally replied, his voice laced with concern. "What if it doesn't pan out? Writing isn't stable. You need a solid career when you grow up." Emma's heart sank, the familiar weight of his expectations pressing on her shoulders. The world of secure professions was one ruled by practicality, not artistry. The chasm between them felt insurmountable at times. Still, she forced herself forward. "I want to take this risk," she exclaimed. "Isn't it my choice?" The words struck a nerve, reverberating between them as silence enveloped the room. Emma searched her father's face, looking for a flicker of openness, a hint that he could empathize even while disagreeing. "I just want you to be safe," he said softly, almost pleading. "What if this changes how you view future choices? Your mother—" He trailed off, pain mixing with his frustration. The mention of her mother hung heavy in the air, a reminder of dreams sacrificed for stability. Emma felt her emotions swirl. "Mom was brave enough to dream," Emma replied, her voice low but firm. "I want to be brave too." Miss Harper watched quietly, her expression encouraging but observant. She could feel the weight of the moment pushing on all sides, the tension between duty and desire palpable. "What if you put your heart into this and it doesn't go your way?" her father pressed, the worry deepening in his eyes. Leaning forward, Emma responded with clarity. "Then at least I'll know I tried. What's worse is living with regret, wondering if I'd been brave enough to chase my dreams." Emma could almost feel Miss Harper's approval permeate the air. This was more than an opportunity to prove she could write. It was a moment of personal rebellion against the life she felt trapped in. Her father seemed to weigh everything she said, his lips pursed tightly. Emma's heartbeat raced, every breath carrying the hope that he could see beyond his fears. Miss Harper finally intervened, her calm tone breaking through the tension. Perhaps this could be something you both agree on, a chance to let Emma explore her talents without completely abandoning her other responsibilities. What can happen if we treat this as a learning experience rather than a risk? Emma's eyes widened. It was brilliant, a compromise, a way for her father to navigate his instinctual need for control. Exactly, she insisted, feeding off the librarian's idea. This could teach me about commitment, creativity, and discipline. Let me show you that I can handle this. Tentative hope began to bloom within her as she observed the gradual shift in her father's expression. Could this moment be a turning point not just for her writing, but for their relationship? Okay, her father finally relented, his voice softer. I'll support you through the competition. Just promise me you'll keep your grades up and balance everything. The relief washed over Emma like an unexpected wave, releasing the tension she had gripped onto for too long. I promise. But within her, a new storm began to brew. What lay ahead was an intense journey through self-discovery and the scrutiny of her own abilities, not only as a writer, but as a daughter seeking approval. How would she confront the looming doubts that awaited her? The moment she put pen to paper, as she felt the exhilaration of newfound freedom envelop her, Emma realized this was only the beginning of a much larger test. In the soft glow of the afternoon sun, the thrill of the unknown beckoned her forward, drawing her into a world rife with questions, excitement, and perhaps the most daunting task of all, confronting herself. What awaited her on that written page, and could she meet the expectations of her father alongside her own burgeoning aspirations? Emma could only hope that with each word, she grew closer to finding not just her voice, but her place in the world. The first rays of dawn filtered through Emma's bedroom window, casting stripes of light across her desk, littered with notebooks, pens, and a solitary, crudely printed flyer announcing the competition. This was her moment, yet the excitement felt tethered by an insatiable knot of anxiety. As she prepared for another day at school, thoughts raced through her mind, intertwining ambitions and doubts in a chaotic whirlwind. She had won her father's tentative approval, but what if that wasn't enough? During class discussions, her hesitation often muted her voice. The prospect of sharing her stories now loomed larger than the fear that had once silenced her. In her first period English class, Mrs. Greenwood announced they would be writing personal essays. Emma's heart quickened. This was not just an assignment, it could be a testing ground. Today, I want you to dig deep and explore your true selves, Mrs. Greenwood encouraged, her hands sweeping across the room as she spoke. Don't hold back. It's about truth. Truth, Emma pondered the word. Would her truth be enough to resonate with others? Flashes of her conversation with her father ignited her resolve. She would write not just to please him or the judges, but to uncover the layers of who she was becoming. That evening, armed with determination, Emma settled at her desk. The blank page stared back at her, mocking her uncertainty. She picked up her pen, its weight a reminder of the power she held. Writing had always been an escape, an incubator for her thoughts. But this time, it felt visceral, as if each stroke could either affirm her identity or lay it bare before the world. She scribbled the first sentences. I am Emma, a daughter of dreams and doubt. I stand at the intersection of safety and ambition, longing to be both. The words flowed, sharp and cathartic, like a long dormant stream coming to life. But with each sentence, a voice in her head whispered, questioning her motives and dissecting her vulnerability. What if she was exposed? Too raw? Too honest? Emma hesitated, her pen hovering over the paper, battling against self-doubt. She leaned back, forcing herself to breathe slowly. Maybe this vulnerability was exactly what she needed, not just for the contest, but as a means of personal growth. Wouldn't her ability to confront her emotions signify strength? Just then, her phone vibrated with an incoming message from Miss Harper. Don't forget to look at the submission guidelines closely and allow yourself to feel while writing. You are your best story. The words resonated deeply, urging Emma to reclaim her narrative. Encouraged, she returned to her essay, the rhythm of her pen gaining momentum again. As she delved deeper, she uncovered memories that had laid hidden. Her mother's laughter, the stories they'd crafted together, and the emptiness that lingered after her passing. Each revelation crystallized into words, revealing complexities stitched into the fabric of her identity. Days turned into weeks, and Emma's commitment morphed into discipline. She balanced her writing with schoolwork, a new routine forming as she persevered. Yet each time she revisited the essay, a part of her hesitated, wary of revealing too much. The very act of sharing her truth felt like standing naked before an audience, vulnerable, scrutinized. Finally, the deadline approached. As the school buzzed with competition buzz, pressing her to finalize her submission, Emma wrestled with the enormity of what she was about to do. She thought of her father's cautious support, and the notion that her fears could transform into empowerment made her pulse quicken. The moment of truth had arrived. With a final read-through, she let her insecurities ebb, embracing her voice through the cascade of sentences that chronicled her journey. The submission button loomed ahead, an embodiment of all she had fought and grown into. As Emma pressed send, a wave of unfamiliar freedom surged through her. She had released a piece of herself into the universe, a declaration that she was not simply a girl defined by others' expectations, but an individual crafting her own narrative. Yet, as relief washed over her, a new anxiety rippled beneath the surface. Would her words make the impact she hoped for, or would they go unnoticed? The anticipation mingled with doubt, thudding in her chest as she realized she now faced the next daunting challenge, awaiting the outcome. Would this leap into vulnerability transform not just her writing, but her relationship with her father and herself? As the days unfolded, Emma braced for whatever awaited on the other side of her courage. The day of the competition results dawned, heavy with anticipation and mixed emotions filling Emma's heart. She could barely contain the storm of feelings that swirled within her, each one begging for acknowledgement. This was more than a contest. It represented everything she had carved out for herself against the rigid expectations of her father. It was proof of her transformation, a testament to her journey toward individual empowerment. Arriving at school, the atmosphere hummed with chatter and curiosity. The auditorium buzzed with energy as students gathered, their eyes glinting with hopeful expectation. Emma's heart raced. While she feared judgment and laughter, her resolve solidified in her mind. For the first time, she felt authentic standing amidst her peers. Her relationship with her father had shifted after the discussions, and while fraught, it now held a thread of mutual respect, something they could build upon. When Mrs. Greenwood stepped onto the stage to announce the winners, Emma swallowed hard. The moment felt surreal, as if time had suspended itself in the space between breaths. We received a wonderful array of submissions that showcased the depth and creativity of our students, Mrs. Greenwood began, her voice pulsing with enthusiasm. It's clear that many of you are on the cusp of discovering your literate potential. As the principal opened the envelope, Emma's fingers fidgeted, searching for comfort in the familiar creases of her notebook. With every name called, she felt both exhilaration and despair, wishing for that recognition, but pulsating beneath an undercurrent of doubt and fear of inadequacy. Then came the mention. A chorus of applause erupted, but the noise faded into a dull hum when she heard one name. And the winner of this year's short story competition is Emma Hartwell. A whirlwind of excitement engulfed her as awe set in. It was as if the world sharpened into focus. The distance between her and her classmates seemed to dissolve as they leapt from their seats. The victory was not just hers, but a validation of everything she had fought to bring forth, a reconciling of her identity and voice. She walked to the front, the cheers ringing in her ears, a harmony she had longed to be part of. Her father was in the crowd, a proud smile breaking through the stoicism she once feared. That look shifted something profound in her heart. For a moment, they were not just father and daughter, but two people standing at the brink of understanding. She could feel the passionate warmth in her chest. She had depicted her authenticity not as a rebellion, but as a bridge drawing them closer together. When she took the microphone, the initial panic faded away, replaced by a wave of confidence. "Thank you all," she breathed, scanning the crowd filled with familiar faces. "This means so much to me. I wrote not just to win, but to share my truth. I want all of you to know that vulnerability is where your strength begins. Let your voices be heard." The applause erupted again, and it felt like the world was supporting her newfound persona, encouraging each hesitant step she took. As she returned to her seat, her father caught her gaze, eyes sparkling with newfound respect. Their unspoken connection felt reinforced through mutual acceptance. He was beginning to see this new Emma as the daughter he could cheer for, the brave one who found her voice. Weeks later, as the dust settled from the competition, Emma thrived. Her writing became a consistent outlet for her exploration and expression. The relationship with her father transformed into a collaboration, a partnership born from respect, as he attended her readings and provided support when she needed a sounding board for her stories. She had conquered her fears and found her identity, embracing
the exhilarating feeling of telling her own story. Emma proved that she could navigate life's complexities while honoring her authentic self. The success forged an invaluable bond between her dreams and aspirations, leading her to not just be the millionaire's daughter, but an individual willing to shape her own narrative. Determined, Emma continued to write, to explore, and to communicate openly with her father, educating him along the way. Together, they shared laughter, ideas, and the growing recognition that success isn't defined merely by accolades, but by the courage to pursue passion and authenticity. Emma stood tall, fully aware that the journey ahead would still have its challenges, but she now carried with her a profound wealth of self-discovery and acceptance. This was just the beginning of a life rich with stories waiting to be written. Step into your own story, champions. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for the powerful art of personal transformation. You need to subscribe now and join this journey of motivation. Don't wait even one more second to share your light.